Hey guys, tonight we're wandering barefoot through the dusty streets of ancient Persia, the air shimmering with heat, your tunic sticking to your back, and absolutely zero AC units in sight. You squint at the sun, which feels about 3 inches from your scalp, and realize, if someone doesn't invent ice cream soon, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across the sand-crusted threshold of a quiet Persian village. It's sometime around 500 BCE, and despite the desert heat pressing against your shoulders, the moment you step into the shadow of a low mud-brick house, something shifts. The air cools, just slightly but noticeably. You pause. How? There are no wires, no vents, no mysterious hums of machinery, and yet it feels bearable. These homes are made of sun-dried mud bricks, and no, that's not just an aesthetic choice. Mud brick is porous. It breathes. When the scorching heat tries to sneak inside, the thick walls say, "No thanks," and absorb the heat slowly, like a camel holding on to its water. During the day, the interior stays cool, and by night, when the desert chills, those same walls give back the stored warmth. It's basically nature's slow-release, heating and cooling combo pack. You sit against one of the outer walls and run your fingers over its uneven surface. It feels crumbly and rough, like a cookie that's been left out overnight, but in a comforting way. There's even a faint earthy scent, like wet clay after a monsoon. Mud brick isn't glamorous, but it's clever. And clever beats glamorous when you're trying not to roast like a kebab. The Persians didn't just stop at walls, though. Step inside and you'll notice the ceilings are unusually high. Not because they were showing off, but because hot air, being the drama queen that it is, always rises. So the higher the ceiling, the more space that hot air has to climb and sulk out of your personal bubble. You stay low and you stay cool. Add some narrow windows near the top, and voila. Hot air gets an express exit route. Now, as you wander through this home, you notice the floors are made of compacted earth, sometimes covered in woven mats. Nothing shiny or tiled, but these floors are excellent at staying cool. Cool enough that if you lie down on them, and you really might, let's be honest, you can feel the heat leaking out of your bones. It's like nature gently saying, "There, there." And here's a fringe detail you might enjoy. Some ancient Persians mixed chopped straw, goat hair, or even camel dung into their mud bricks. Not because they were bored, but because it helped with insulation and structural integrity. Yes, camel dung, your house might have been part animal, part earth. But it worked. It really worked. You follow a small child through the house, barefoot and sun-kissed, as they lead you to a central courtyard. It's open to the sky, shaded at the edges, and lined with potted plants wilting dramatically. In the center, a shallow basin of water sits still, reflecting the blue sliver of sky. This isn't a fancy pool, it's a deliberate design. Water evaporates and cools the surrounding air. The ancients were basically hacking the air with puddles. You sit beside the basin and dunk your hand in. It's warm but oddly refreshing. As water evaporates from your skin, the breeze, even a faint one, makes your arm feel cooler. Multiply that by a whole courtyard, and you've got yourself a functioning natural AC unit, powered entirely by sunlight and hope. Historians still argue whether every home had one of these basins, or if they were a luxury of the wealthier class. Some say smaller homes used hanging cloths soaked in water instead. Primitive air coolers, fluttering in doorways or draped over windows. Either way, water was essential. And while it wasn't always abundant in the arid Iranian plateau, Persians were nothing if not resourceful. But more on that later. Let's not forget the doors. You think doors are just for privacy? Think again. In these homes, many inner doors are split horizontally, like barn doors. You open the top half to let the air flow, but keep the bottom closed to stop curious goats or nosy neighbors. That's not just quaint, that's airflow control. Smart, quietly brilliant. A breeze curls into the courtyard, and for a moment it feels like the world exhales. You exhale too. Maybe it's the silence, or the smell of baked earth, or the way these walls have seen generations shelter from the same heat you're feeling now. These homes weren't just shelters. They were passive machines, crafted to dance with the sun, the wind, and the water. There's even evidence some homes were partially sunken into the ground. The cool mudbrick air still clings to your skin as you step back outside, blinking against the midday light. It's time to wander farther, beyond the shaded courtyards and the clever ceiling tricks, to the real showstopper of ancient Persian ingenuity, the Windcatchers. You spot one in the distance, tall, slender, and rising above the rooftops like a giant clay periscope. It's not just a decorative tower, though it's got a certain windswept charm. This, my friend, is a bad year, literally wind grabber, and it's about to change your entire view of how people lived without electricity, air conditioning, or even those desperate ice-cold face mist sprays from convenience stores. You approach slowly, like a pilgrim about to enter a temple. The tower is rectangular, hollow, and laced with vertical slats. These slats face different directions, like the ears of a suspicious cat, always scanning the breeze. You crane your neck and realize it's not just one opening. There are four, sometimes even six or eight. Why? Because the desert isn't polite. The wind doesn't stick to a single direction, and the Persians, being the unbothered engineers they were, designed their wind catchers to follow nature's mood swings. A sudden gust hits the tower. You feel it roll through the opening like a whisper. Inside, the hot air is pushed down into the building, not because the wind wants to, but because the tower is literally shaped to encourage airflow. Like a slide for breezes, it's physics. Lazy genius physics. Step inside the home below the bad gear, and you immediately feel it, an invisible thread of cool air brushing past your face. Not a full-on breeze, just presence, movement. Air that doesn't feel like soup. In some cases, this wind would even be directed over a shallow pool of water at the base of the tower, creating instant evaporation, and with it, more cooling. Think of it like an ancient swamp cooler, only quieter, and no need to replace a filter every 6 months. And now here's a tidbit that feels almost too smart to be real. Some wind catchers were double agents. When there was no wind or when the outside air was hotter than the inside, they acted as chimneys, pulling the hot air out instead. That's right, they flipped the script. Passive systems with personality. You lean against a cool stone ledge and take a sip of water from a ceramic jug. It's been stored underground in an ambar or traditional cellar, and it's nearly as cold as anything you'd find in a modern fridge. How? Because it's deep enough to be surrounded by earth on all sides. Dirt, it turns out, is a fantastic insulator. Modernity, 0. Mud and gravity, 1. And let's talk about those underground water channels, canats. Now this is where things start to feel borderline mythological. Picture a mountain range in the distance, capped with snow. As that snow melts, it seeps into the ground, forming hidden aquifers. Now imagine digging a tunnel, horizontal, sloping ever so gently, from that mountain all the way to a thirsty village below. A tunnel that runs for miles, hand-dug, brick-lined, and angled with such precision that water flows but doesn't flood. You look down a narrow well-like shaft and realize you're peering into one of the vertical access points of this subterranean wonder. Every few hundred feet, workers dug straight down to allow for cleaning, repair, and airflow. These access shafts, scattered across the desert landscape like quiet punctuation marks, kept the system running for centuries. Some canats are still in use today. The water that emerged was cool, clean, and, thanks to the slope, constantly moving. No pumps, no electricity, just a profound understanding of gravity, terrain, and patience. It's almost meditative. Historians still argue whether these systems were invented in Persia or adopted from earlier Mesopotamian designs, but no one denies the scale. At its peak, Persia had thousands of canats, some stretched over 40 miles. You don't build that by accident. In wealthier homes, the canat water would flow through small channels carved into the floor like indoor brooks. The gentle trickle was both practical and peaceful, offering ambient noise long before white noise machines were a thing. You stretch your legs beside one now, letting the steady rhythm lull your thoughts into a slower gear. A cat strolls by, unfazed, its tail flicking like it owns the entire water system. And honestly, it might. Cats were pretty revered, but more on them another night. Let's not forget the thick, heavy doors that often led into these homes. They weren't just there to look imposing, they were thermal buffers. On one side, the unforgiving sun. On the other, your carefully balanced interior cool. These doors, often made of dense wood and reinforced with metal, could absorb heat and still swing silently in the breeze. And here's a quirky detail you might not expect. Door knockers shaped differently depending on your gender. One shape for women, one for me. Night comes softly and yazzed. The sky shifts from bleach pearl to smoky lavender, and the mud brick walls seem to glow from within, their clay faces holding onto the sun's warmth like a memory. But here's the trick. Inside, it stays cool. Not cool in the smug way of a perfectly chilled museum gallery, but cool in the way a desert oasis feels at dusk. Earned, quiet, and necessary. You find yourself stepping into a sarabandi, a large hall with thick walls, often used as a communal space or gathering room. The floors are made of stone or ceramic tile, cold to the touch. Your bare feet notice it instantly. These rooms are often semi-underground, with high ceilings and thick walls to regulate temperature. The air moves slowly, deliberately. You get the feeling that if you were completely still, you could hear the room breathe. No one's coming around to adjust thermostats here. That's because the room doesn't need you. It's already balancing heat through thermal mass and passive air movement. The sun sets. The heat outside lingers. But the walls hold the day's burn, releasing it so slowly you barely notice. It's less like climate control and more like climate meditation. Outside again, the domes begin to glow faintly under starlight. You pass another water channel. This one's still carrying water from a qanat that might be older than your country. No motor, no rush, just gravity, doing its thing. And above you, you notice something else. Rooftops. Flat, wide, often accessible by stairs, sometimes with short walls to lean against and watch the night unfold. These rooftops weren't just functional, they were social. Before air conditioning, this was where families slept in the summer. Cool, open air, stars overhead, the sound of neighbors shifting on mattresses or whispering under blankets. Imagine that now. An entire neighborhood of families laid out in rows beneath the stars, sleeping lightly, rising with the sun. No LED glare, no hum of a condenser unit, just the sky, and maybe a slow wind slipping through the towers. And if you had any doubts about how deep the science goes, consider this. In some homes, architects align the windcatchers not just with prevailing winds, but with specific parts of the home, like the Shabastan, a deep, often windowless hall where people gather during the hottest part of the day. The air would be drawn down the bad gear, over the Connaught-cooled water, and released into the Shabastan like a natural air chiller. If it sounds like a luxury, that's only because you've forgotten how luxurious comfort actually is when the temperature hits 45 degrees Celsius. There's elegance here, but not the loud, gold leaf kind. This is elegance through restraint, design rooted in necessity. Persian builders weren't chasing aesthetics, they were chasing survival. And in doing so, they created something that today's architects are scrambling to rediscover. Passive design that works with nature, not against it. You find yourself thinking about how far we've strayed from that mindset. We build glass towers in desert cities now. We rely on machines to correct our poor choices. And when the power goes out, the illusion collapses. But these old houses, they were built to fail gracefully. When the sun burned, they adapted. When the water slowed, they adjusted. Nothing is permanent here, but everything is resilient. The stars are out now, bright and low, like they've stooped closer just to get a better look at the quiet wisdom below. You lie back on a rooftop cushion, the wind a gentle hush in your ear, the mud brick still cool beneath you. There's no hum of compressors, no flicker of fluorescent light, just a tower that catches wind, a tunnel that carries water, and a people who once asked not how to conquer the desert, but how to listen to it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real lesson here.